After you've developed your strategic plan, it makes sense to consider subjecting it to a devil's advocate program. So what is a devil's advocate program? Basically, it's where a disinterested or objective party tries to detect weaknesses in a strategic plan. Tries to detect real weaknesses, not just not just inventing problems, but in trying to detect real weaknesses. And it occurs after the strategic plan has been developed. What often happens is when the employees are developing a plan, there's a lot of times one or a few employees that tries to undermine the other person's plan or tries to criticize the plan as it's being thought out, as it's being developed. They really don't have any good ideas themselves, but they just try to have a lot of gotcha moments. If you can avoid a lot of that if you say, we don't really need a lot of criticism now, we need some good ideas, and we're going to subject it to a devil's advocate program at the end. So it may make the planning process more efficient and still have that level of scrutiny later. Why is the devil's advocate program necessary? Every decision maker makes mistakes in the way they make decisions. Every executive has made mistakes. The most successful business people, most successful scientists, most successful politicians have made lots of mistakes, and having somebody kind of audit their work is good. So there's a lot of psychology behind mistakes that are made in decision making, but a few of them are available here. One is information hoarding. A lot of people don't really want to share their information, or a lot of times they'll use their good information, their good data, to sabotage somebody's plan after it's already starting to be phased in. There's a lot of egocentrism. A lot of successful people have the attitude that I've been in this business for 20 or 30 years, I've made a lot of money, I've grown the company quite a bit, and I just don't need any scrutiny. There's yes men, yes women that are intimidated of the boss, or fearful of them, or just don't want to deviate from the boss's thinking. There's groupthink, which basically says that the groups tend to kind of converge on the most popular thinking, or they converge on the lowest common denominator of the information that's available. People that dissent from the group are sometimes ostracized. They don't really fit in. They're marginalized, so they have a disincentive to deviate from the majority of the people in the group. It's confirmation bias, which basically says that we only seek information that will confirm our contention, and we discount information that deviates from our contention. There's the framing or anchoring bias. I have an example here. So if I was to ask this half of the room, what is the product of this equation? And give you 5 seconds. Give me a number of the product of this equation. If I was to ask this half of the room, give me the product of this equation. In most cases, this part of the room would come up with a higher number than this part of the room, because we anchored the equation with high numbers over here, anchored it with low numbers over here. So there's been a lot of studies done with this. If I ask, what's the population of Turkey? Is it more than 30? Is it 35 million or 350 million? The estimates you would give me would probably be closer to the numbers that I framed the question with. So you can persuade managers to take action. If you say, we have to outsource almost our entire accounting operations. Other companies are outsourcing their entire accounting operations. Then the thinking is, well, we have to outsource a lot. You know, maybe it's not 100%, but it's a lot. You know, just because of the way it's framed. The availability bias basically says that you recollect things that are most recent or most vivid. So if the server was down for 2 minutes last year, that may have been a very traumatic 2 minutes, and yes, the company could have lost some transactions during those 2 minutes, but it was only 2 minutes. So you may not need to spend a lot of money, but the pain is more visible maybe than it should be. There's the rear view mirror effect, which basically says that people project what happened in the recent past onto the future. which is not always appropriate. There's illusory correlation, which means that just because there's a correlation doesn't indicate there's any causality. So it was a true fact that in the early 1990s, there was a big growth in the population of storks in Germany. And there was also a baby boom in Germany at that time, but it doesn't mean there was causality of storks causing births. All right, so benefits of the Devil's Advocate program. Basic costly mistakes will be avoided, hopefully in most cases. So it does add another layer of work. It does take some time. It does cost some money, but those are relatively nominal costs if a strategic decision, a bad strategic decision will be avoided. Just the review process itself will cause planners to be more prudent. You know, if you know that your work is going to be checked by an outsider, it forces you to be more diligent in developing your plan. So who should not be a Devil's Advocate audit? Anyone involved in developing the strategic plan. You don't want the same person developing a plan to audit the plan. Anybody that could be impacted positively or negatively by the plan, whether it's accepted or rejected. You don't want those people auditing it. Next one's kind of counterintuitive, but people with deep subject matter expertise. So it's better to have generalists do the Devil's Advocate program, because people with subject matter expertise sometimes get really caught up in the euphoria of a technology, like everybody has to have Java or Unix or whatever it is, or everybody has to do re-engineering, that's the hottest thing, and if I'm not doing it, we're kind of falling behind. So people with deep subject matter expertise are really not that good. People that are overly empathetic, people that sympathize too much with the difficulties that are caused by the existing way of doing business, or any employee who can suffer career or political consequences from speaking out against the strategic plan. So who could be a good Devil's Advocate? A semi-retired partner, maybe an older person that has been with the company for quite some time and now is less active at the company, maybe works full-time or part-time, or maybe he's more of an advisory role. So that person is good because they know the company very well, they know the industry very well, and they're not caught up in the political situation. If it's an older person, they don't really care which executives are going to benefit a little bit or lose a little bit. They're past that. Or an outsider that has a fresh pair of eyes.